300 versus 10,000, a number so absurd it should never exist in military history. Under the burning Levantine sun, an elite Egyptian force, armored, disciplined, confident, marched toward what they believed would be an easy victory. Waiting for them were barely 300 Nubian archers. No chariots, no heavy shields, just bows, terrain, and deadly patience. The world of the late Bronze Age stands, balanced on a blade's edge. Empires rise not through peace, but through possession of land, of trade routes, of reputation. And at the center of this tension lies Kadesh, a fortified city controlling the arteries between Egypt and the Hittite Empire. Whoever holds it does not merely win territory, they command the future. Pharaoh Ramesses II, young yet desperate to cement his legacy, marches north draped in gold, banners snapping behind him like divine approval. Egyptian inscriptions would later call him beloved of Amun, chosen by the gods, invincible by fate. But beneath the polished image is urgency. Egypt's influence in the Levant is slipping. Allies waver. Rivals watch closely. This campaign must succeed not just militarily, but symbolically. The Egyptian army is massive, thousands of infantry, chariots gleaming in the sun, officers confident in numbers, drilled into their minds since youth. Strength has always been Egypt's language of war. Overwhelm. Advance. Break the enemy by sheer presence. Yet far from the center of command, on the edges of strategy maps and royal speeches, stand men history barely names Nubian archers. Recruited from the southern lands, hardened by heat and scarcity, they are masters of distance and discipline. Egyptians both rely on and quietly fear them. Their bows are not ceremonial, their accuracy is legendary, but in official narratives, they remain shadows, tools, not heroes. As the army approaches Kadesh, the atmosphere tightens. The land changes. Open plains narrow, hills rise, paths constrict. Dust hangs heavy in the air, muting sound, blurring vision. This is no place for grand maneuvers or massed charges. It is a land that rewards patience and punishes arrogance. The Egyptians believe they are marching toward glory. The Nubians know they are walking into a test of survival, and somewhere between confidence and calculation, between empire and erasure, the first quiet steps of disaster are already unfolding. The armies draw closer, unaware that the battlefield itself has chosen sides. Confidence is loud, but fear is quieter, heavier, and far more dangerous. Inside, the Egyptian command ranks. Tension coils beneath polished armor and ritual certainty. Scouts return with reports that refuse to align. Distances feel wrong. Enemy numbers are unclear. The land ahead offers too many blind angles, too many places where eyes could be watching unseen. Officers exchange glances they quickly look away from. No one wants to be the first to voice doubt. At the center stands Ramesses II, composed, immovable, projecting divine calm. His presence is meant to steady the army, to remind every soldier that the gods walk with Egypt. Yet even a pharaoh feels the pressure of expectation. This campaign is not merely about Kadesh, it is about reputation, about proving that Egypt's power still inspires fear. Hesitation now would be remembered forever. Orders are given with certainty, but received with unease. Among the ranks, soldiers feel it first. The weight of armor grows heavier under the sun. Marching drums sound too loud, then too quiet. Jokes fade. The men know numbers should mean safety, but here, pressed into narrow ground, numbers feel like confinement. Shields knock against shields. Movement becomes stiff, restricted. The sense of being watched tightens throats. Far from the banners and trumpets, the Nubian archers wait. There is no confusion among them, only restraint. Each man understands the imbalance. They are not here to win glory. They are here because retreat means death, and precision is the only mercy available. Their commanders speak little. Instructions are simple. Positions are memorized. Distances measured by instinct. Wind tested with fingers raised to the sky. Where Egyptian leaders carry the burden of image, Nubian leaders carry the burden of survival. Silence becomes their ally. No war cries, no drums, just stillness stretched thin like a drawn bowstring. The longer the Egyptians advance without seeing an enemy, the more imagination fills the void. Fear has space to grow. Two forces prepare for battle, but only one understands that the mind will break before the body ever does. And somewhere in that silence, the first arrow is already being chosen. The battlefield around Kadesh is not neutral ground. It is a silent accomplice. What appears, from a distance, to be open terrain slowly reveals its cruelty as the Egyptian army moves deeper. The land narrows. Low ridges rise where none seem to exist. Dry channels cut the earth like scars, invisible until men stumble into them. Every step forward compresses thousands of soldiers into tighter space, turning strength into density and density into vulnerability. The Nubian archers understand this landscape intimately. They were placed here not by accident, but by design. Elevated positions offer long, clean lines of sight. Shallow slopes allow quick movement without revealing silhouettes. Sparse vegetation breaks outlines just enough to hide intent. This land is a ruler, and the Nubians have already measured every inch. Their weapons are perfectly suited for this moment. Composite bows, short, powerful, deadly, crafted for speed rather than brute force. Each archer carries arrows designed to do more than wound flesh. They target gaps, underarms, thighs, necks, places armor never fully protects. But killing is not the immediate goal. Disruption is. Egyptian formations rely on cohesion. Shields interlock. Commands travel by voice and drum. Chariots require space to maneuver, but geometry betrays them. Angles collapse. Lines bend. Sound scatters. Orders arrive late or not at all. A single fallen officer creates a ripple of hesitation that spreads outward, invisible but devastating. The Nubians fire in measured volleys, not to overwhelm, but to provoke reaction. A step back here, a shield raised too high there, a horse spooked by the sudden hiss of air. Each arrow rewrites the battlefield's balance. From the Egyptian perspective, the enemy remains elusive. There is no wall to strike, no line to charge, only a growing sense that the land itself is resisting them. This is not chaos, it is calculation. Every second the Egyptians remain unsure is a victory for the archers. Every moment of delay tightens the trap. The numbers no longer matter, only angles, timing, and fear do. And then, against every instinct of caution, an order is given that changes everything. Hesitation is interpreted as weakness, and weakness, in the doctrine of empire, must be crushed. Within the Egyptian command, uncertainty reaches its breaking point. The enemy remains unseen. The arrows have not yet flown. Silence stretches too long for comfort. To pause now would invite doubt among officers, among soldiers, among allies who will later hear of this moment. A decision is made not because it is wise, but because it is expected. The order moves down the line. Advance. Standards rise higher. Drums beat louder, faster, forcing confidence into tired legs. The mass begins to push forward, shields tightening, ranks compressing. From a distance, it looks impressive, unstoppable. Up close, it is clumsy, heavy, and blind. Thousands move as one, but cannot see what lies just beyond the next rise. For the Nubian archers, this is the signal they have waited for. They do not rush. No cries answer the drums. Bowstrings are drawn in practiced silence. Commanders lift a single hand. Wind is judged. Distance confirmed. The Egyptians step into the geometry of the kill zone without realizing it exists. Then the air changes. The first volley does not scream, it whispers. A sudden hiss, barely audible, followed by confusion. Shields rise instinctively, but too late, too high. Officers turn to shout commands that never fully form. Horses rear. Lines stutter. Before understanding can settle, the second volley arrives. Perfectly timed, perfectly spaced. Arrows strike where armor parts, where formations overlap, where panic spreads faster than pain. The advance slows, then falters not from losses alone, but from disbelief. This was not supposed to happen. The drums lose rhythm, orders collide. Men push forward and backward at the same time. To retreat now would mean disgrace. To advance means walking deeper into invisible fire. The Nubians shift positions between volleys, shadows slipping across ridges, denying the Egyptians any clear target. What should have been a demonstration of power becomes a demonstration of exposure. The fatal truth settles in too late. This advance cannot succeed, and it cannot be stopped. The moment has passed. The outcome is now inevitable. The battlefield unravels without ever becoming loud. There is no clash of steel, no heroic charge, only confusion spreading like a sickness through the Egyptian ranks. Arrows continue to fall in disciplined waves, never frantic, never wasteful. Each volley lands with intention, striking not just bodies, but confidence. Soldiers begin to flinch at shadows. Every gust of wind feels like a warning. Men drop shields to shield their faces. Others press closer together, seeking safety in numbers, only to make themselves easier targets. Commands are shouted, contradicted, then swallowed by dust and fear. Officers strain to be seen, raising staffs and standards that only draw more attention to themselves. The Nubian archers remain ghosts. After each release, they shift down a slope, behind a rise, into cover measured long before the first arrow flew. To the Egyptians, it feels as if the land itself is attacking them. There is no single direction to face, no enemy line to confront. The concept of battle dissolves into survival. Psychological collapse moves faster than casualties. Soldiers begin to imagine arrows that have not yet been fired. Flinches turn into stumbles. Stumbles turn into breaks in formation. And once the formation fractures, fear multiplies. Some men attempt to charge uphill, desperate to reach the source of their terror. They find nothing but empty ground and fresh volleys cutting off their momentum. Others hesitate, frozen between obedience and instinct. In that pause, discipline dies. Dust clouds thicken, blinding eyes already strained by heat and sweat. Drums fall silent not because they are ordered to stop, but because no one knows what rhythm to play anymore. The battlefield loses its structure, its logic. The Nubians do not pursue. They do not need to. Their goal is not slaughter, it is unraveling. And unravel it does. In this moment, Egypt's greatest strength becomes its greatest weakness. 10,000 men cannot move as one when trust collapses. Numbers offer no protection against fear that has no face. Then it happens. A section of the line pulls back, not ordered, not coordinated, just a few steps at first. But those steps are seen, and once seen, they are repeated. The line begins to bend, and bending, under this pressure, can only lead to one end. What finally breaks the Egyptian army is not a single moment, but the realization that control is gone. The retreat begins in fragments. One unit steps back to regain spacing. Another turns to protect its flank. No horn announces it. No command authorizes it. Yet the movement spreads faster than any order ever could. Men see their neighbors withdrawing and assume the worst. The fear becomes permission. Officers attempt to restore discipline, shouting themselves hoarse, raising symbols of authority that once commanded obedience. Now they command only attention, and attention draws arrows. One by one, voices fall silent. The chain of command frays, then snaps. The Nubian archers sense the shift immediately. This is the moment they prepared for, but they do not rush to exploit it. There is no reckless pursuit, no chase into unknown ground. Instead, they increase pressure with precision. Volleys narrow, timing tightens. Each release reinforces the same message. There is no safe direction. The Egyptian mass folds inward, pressing against itself. Shields collide. Men stumble. Chariots, once symbols of dominance, become obstacles trapped by terrain and panic. Horses rear, confused by noise and movement they can no longer interpret. The battlefield becomes a living maze with no exit. Pride dies here, not in a dramatic charge or heroic last stand, but in the slow erosion of certainty. Soldiers who marched north believing themselves unstoppable now focus on one thing only: escape. The idea of victory no longer exists. Even survival feels uncertain. The Nubians hold their positions, disciplined to the end. They know when to stop. Victory is already secured. To advance would risk turning control into chaos, and they will not make the mistake their enemy did. When the arrows finally cease, the silence is heavier than any sound that came before. An army of 10,000 has not been destroyed, but it has been undone. And that truth is more dangerous to an empire than any defeat carved in stone. The battlefield falls quiet. But the story is far from over. When the dust settles, empires do what they have always done best: they rewrite memory. In the days that follow Kadesh, Egyptian scribes begin their work. Stone reliefs are planned, inscriptions are drafted, victories are proclaimed. Pharaoh Ramesses II is depicted standing tall, favored by the gods, triumphant against chaos. The narrative is clean, heroic, unquestionable, but the battlefield tells a different story. No monuments are raised for hesitation. No carvings show formations breaking without a fight. And certainly no walls speak of Nubian archers forcing a massive army into retreat through precision and restraint. Their role is folded quietly into vagueness: auxiliaries, support, unnamed hands behind a divine king. Officially, Egypt did not lose. Unofficially, everyone knows something went terribly wrong. Among the soldiers who survived, the truth spreads in murmurs. Around fires, away from officers, men speak of arrows that came from nowhere, of silence that crushed courage, of a moment when numbers stopped mattering. These stories do not reach stone, but they travel far. Among Egypt's rivals, the lesson is understood immediately. Nubian archers gain a reputation that no inscription can erase. They become a warning more than a weapon. Commanders learn to respect terrain, to fear unseen enemies, to question massed arrogance. Politically, Egypt maintains its image. Diplomacy smooths over humiliation. Treaties follow. Borders stabilize. But beneath the surface, strategy shifts. Confidence becomes cautious. Overconfidence becomes a memory that still stings. History often tells us that winners write the past. What it rarely tells us is how much they choose to leave out. The silence surrounding this encounter is not accidental, it is deliberate. Because admitting the truth would mean acknowledging that Egypt's power was fragile. That discipline and intelligence could humble divinity. And so, the story is buried, not because it lacked importance, but because it had too much. Yet even erased victories leave echoes, and echoes shape the future. History often teaches that strength decides wars. Kadesh teaches something far more unsettling. On that quiet stretch of contested land, an empire learned that numbers mean nothing without understanding. 10,000 soldiers, trained and confident, were not defeated by force, but by precision, patience, and psychological mastery. The Nubian archers did not conquer territory. They conquered certainty. Their victory was not loud enough for monuments, not glorious enough for royal hymns, but it was powerful enough to change how armies thought. From that moment forward, terrain mattered more. Silence became a weapon. Archers were no longer background support. They were fear made distant and invisible. This is why the story was buried, because it challenges the mythology of empire. It reminds us that dominance is fragile, that arrogance blinds, and that those written into history's margins often shape its direction the most. The Nubians were not kings. They did not commission stone reliefs. But on that day, they forced one of the greatest armies on earth to retreat, without ever meeting them blade to blade. Empires fall when they stop listening. Armies fail when they underestimate the unseen. The forgotten side of Kadesh is not just about archers and arrows, it is about humility, about the cost of certainty, about how intelligence, restraint, and discipline can dismantle raw power without needing to destroy it. And perhaps that is why this story still matters. Because even today, history whispers the same warning. Those who believe themselves unstoppable are often already standing inside the trap. Some victories are erased from stone, but never from consequence.